All right. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see you all. Thanks for being here. We have Lori with us today to present for our Ask CASA on permanency mediation. A little fun fact about Lori, she used to be a CASA supervisor out of Worcester County, and she then went on to court investigation, which she still actively does. And she's also at Plummer Youth. Lori, what is it called? Plummer Youth Promises?
Promise.
Okay, and she does permanency mediation there, and that is what we are going to learn all about today. So I am going to pass it over to Lori. Regarding questions, when you guys have something that pops up, feel free to pop it into the chat, or we will kind of give some time at the end for you guys to ask as well. All right, thank you so much.
Great. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Absolutely.
All right, I find that PowerPoint it helps keep me on track. Okay, so I want to really thank all of you so much. Can you see that PowerPoint okay?
Yes, we are good.
All right, great. So thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. It's a wonderful opportunity to speak with CASA. CASA is very near and dear to my heart. I started out in the field of early childhood, and I wanted to move into the area of advocacy, and that's how I came to CASA. I was fortunate to be with CASA for about 10 years, wore a lot of different hats while I was there, did a lot of the training, was very close with Lynn, who is still there helping to lead you on your way. And so I thank you all for the work that you do. It is really valued. It's unfortunate that it is needed in the system, but it truly is. And so again, thanks for the work that you do. When I left CASA, I started to do some court investigations, which I continue to do. I do educational GAL work as well. And when I was starting to try and explore what do I want to do next, I was talking with an attorney. She said, "Well, have you ever thought about mediation?" And I really didn't know anything about it. I joined into a basic mediation training, and from there went to a permanency mediation training. So I did it back to back. Having experience in child welfare was really so helpful because that is the population that permanency mediation works with. Basic mediation was really helpful. I think that it helps in a wide variety of areas. I'm a big believer in mediation. I do it for a living. So when initially we were doing permanency mediation, it was really going well. It was starting actually to take root, especially in the North County. Judge Louis Perez was on the bench. And then as money often does, it drives a lot of things. Funding became a challenge. So permanency mediation left the courts for a good period of time. I was very sad to hear that. Wanted to continue on with the work. So I started to do mediation within a community setting. I did some small claims. I do divorce mediation. I actually have a divorce mediation practice. So I think mediation fits in a lot of different areas. About 2018, can't believe it's that long already, permanency mediation had a revival. Okay, Plummer Youth Promise is our umbrella agency. And Plummer Youth Promise is it's a wonderful program. It's based in Salem, Massachusetts. It has this beautiful property right on the water. And they do a lot of intensive permanency work. It started out actually as a working farm for boys, went on and continues to be a residential program for girls and boys. They have a foster care program. They have a young adult apartment living program. And their mission is really to help every child find their network. You know, we say it takes a village. And Plummer really believes in that, and they actively engage youth in really identifying who they will have post-system. You know, a lot of our youth age out of care without the supports that they so need. So part of the work that Plummer does is really to say, you know, where do they have to go for Thanksgiving dinner? Who do they call if they get a flat tire? Who's going to be their support? They reach back to family because, you know, mom may not have been in a position to resume care, but is she someone that could be a part of this child's life now? A foster parent that a child had been with for so many years, can they be a support going forward? So permanency mediation was really a good fit for Plumbing with Promise, because we really do focus on what the future will look like for children in care. So our group is not that big as far as our team. Plum is a pretty big agency, but our leader is Julie Pearson, and we have 3 regional supervisors. So I am the supervisor in the central part of the state, Worcester County, Norfolk County. We're going to work our way through the whole state. There's still a few counties. Plymouth is coming up next. Dawn Jewett is the supervisor in the east, and Susan Glackey in the west. And when we began this, we were only in the West. So the relationship with the legislature and the judiciary really started to be built strongly in the West. And I believed in this program so much that I am a Worcester girl, and I went out to Springfield and Holyoke to do these cases. It was all in person at that point in time, no shows or not. You went out, you fought to really try and make those connections with people in their homes. And I really believed in it. So I was thrilled when it came to the Worcester area, because it's, much closer to home. But I really believe in the program. I think it's a great mission. So mediation in and of itself, I always tell people that we help people have difficult conversations, okay? The basic principles of mediation in any context apply to permanency mediation. It is always a voluntary process. And sometimes people have a hard time seeing that because it's court involved. So if an order comes from the court to do mediation, how is that voluntary? The order is only for a screening, and the screening is to say, come and listen to what mediation is all about. It's very skeptical for parents to come to engage in a new service, to really have faith that this is something that will work for them. We do screenings, we meet with all the parties, share the whole process of permanency mediation, what they can expect. And from there on, that engagement is voluntary. So nobody's forced. Nobody gets extra credit for participating in mediation, and no one gets penalized if they choose not to. The principle of informed consent is we let people know that if they need information as they're going along, they're entitled to that information. People are represented by attorneys. And I really encourage attorneys to be part of the process, especially the screenings, different individual sessions with moms and dads, children's attorneys to be part of it, because it helps oftentimes for clients to feel more secure because they have someone there. And we also want the attorneys to have a better understanding of this process. So we've been doing this for several years. It's not a brand new model, but we've only actually been in the Worcester courts for a little over a year. Okay, so we've moved county to county. And so we've been in the Worcester area. We've done some cases through the department. The department has asked for permanency mediation, but technically we've only been within the Worcester juvenile courts for the last year. So we're the new kids on the block, and not everyone has experienced permanency mediation, and not everyone has a full understanding of it. And so we really seek, so I am so pleased to have this opportunities, because you will come across permanency mediation in some of your cases. There are times that you may be asked to engage as part of a team in mediation. So as we're going along, we want people to be informed about the process, what their rights are. They have the opportunity to speak with their attorneys. We always stress that this is a process that is self-determined. People get to really help decide how they'll engage, and if an agreement is reached, what those terms will look like. Until things are all said and done and something is approved by the court, it is simply a conversation. Okay, no one is obligated to anything until they've seen the whole thing play out. They have an agreement to look at, they have, the right guidance to look through it with them, and an agreement would need to be approved by the court before it becomes effective. It's often nice that mediators are neutral parties. We're impartial. We don't take sides, and we don't get to make the decisions for parties. We help people have conversations to say, can you come to these decisions on your own about the children that you love? It's a confidential process, which really helps, because When you're speaking with a parent who has a lot of emotions when we're talking about their children, they may or may not have had a great relationship with the department as they've gone through this process. The department may or may not have a positive view of the parents as we've gone through this process. We don't share what people tell us unless we have that permission to share. We let them know that because of the system that we're working within, the only thing that we do share is if we were to learn of a new allegation of abuse and neglect, which almost never happens because all the bad stuff has already happened. You know, the children are in care, the concerns have already been recognized. But we let people know that when you have different emotions going, we're not always our best selves. We don't always use the most polite language. And that's okay. You know, parents need a chance to vent, to express their fears, their frustrations, their concerns. So these basic principles apply to permanency mediation. And then in addition, we have all these extra little pieces that go just with permanency mediation in and of itself. It really is child-centered. The adults start by talking about themselves, what they want, what they think they need. But as we go along, we are really able to guide them to say, what do you think your child needs from you now and in the future? For a pre-adoptive parent, what do you think your child will need in relation to a connection to their biological family now and in the future? It's really a collaborative approach, trying to get people to work together. We want to empower people to have their voices heard. And there are many times that people don't feel heard. They just don't. When someone repeats the same thing over and over again, they have not felt heard. The beginning sessions that we have with parents, if we are talking about an adoption, I've yet to have a parent come to me and start out right away, yes, I want to talk about my child being adopted. However, if you really work through the process, they're able to have those conversations. We talk about their hopes and dreams, and we also talk about what might happen if they can't have the child come home to them. I have relationship building bolded here because when we are looking at these cases, children need to have a place to put down their roots, to continue their childhood, to have a safe place to grow up. If a child grows up in a family that is not their family of origin, it could be a kinship resource, but it's not mom and dad. It could be a non-relationship that has no connection biologically to the family. That biological family doesn't disappear. That child doesn't forget that that biological family existed. Many agreements have some form of ongoing contact. So if you're talking about an open adoption or guardianship agreement, there's that ongoing contact. Well, how do these people come together and support this child and what they need now and going forward if there's no relationship? I was explaining this process to an attorney, and they were really outraged when I was saying, you know, the parents and the foster parents haven't had a chance to meet. And she said, no, the department doesn't do that. I said, you're absolutely right. They don't. But mediation does. We really work to try and bring biological families and resources together. Because if a foster parent is just going to be a foster parent, okay, they still know that child better than anyone because they're caring for them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They know what they look like when they get up in the morning. They know if they've had a bad dream. They know their favorite foods. They have a lot of information to share. Biological families, they have that personal history that no one else has, that no one else can provide that child now or going forward. So we really try to say, how do we have all the adults work together? So when the system goes away, when social workers are gone, when judges are gone, when mediators are gone, when it's just the family, who does this child have to help support them as they go along? We try and help to educate all the parties in relation to what a child might need now and in the future, based on all the research that goes on in regards to adoption and children's needs, the effects of trauma on child's growth and development. We reach out to parties and we meet with them where they are. We go into the homes. I love moving past the area of Zoom. We still rely on it quite a bit, but we are really going back in person as much as possible. And, you know, I was sitting this week in a family shelter with the mom, and sitting across the table from her having this conversation. There was so much, the richness of it was just different than doing it via Zoom. So to the extent that we can meet with people in person, we do. We also state that this takes months, not hours. If you put people in a room together long enough, they'll agree to anything to get out of the room. We don't want that. This is not a quick fix. We're coming into these cases that have been going on for several years already, okay? So we need a little time to build our relationship with these parties, to help them understand what our role is and what options they have before we're asking people to make really life-altering decisions. And even the court and the attorneys are having a hard time with that. So we asked for mediation. Why can't you just get it done in a couple of weeks? You know, if you're really asking people to trust you with real life-altering decisions, you need to give them time to think about it. You need to, when you're bringing people together, where there's really a fear oftentimes. So children were removed because of safety concerns. Those safety concerns are real. But going forward, is it unsafe for a child to have a visit with their mom in the community if they're supported by their adoptive parents? We talk about how the children will best be supported going forward, what safety measures need to be looked at, but really, how can families create things and make it their own? So it takes some time to do that, right? And we also recognize concurrent planning. We know that that's one of the department's mandates. They're supposed to do concurrent planning on every case. The hope is that any child that tragically has to be removed from their home is able to go back to their family of origin. But that doesn't always happen, okay? And if they can't, then what's the next best option? When we're doing permanency mediation, and I'll talk a little bit about the two models that we have, but we try and normalize concurrent planning as much as possible. Some bad things have happened and the children are in care. And if they can't go back home, the people who know and love these children and care about them, can they be part of the decision-making as to what that alternate plan will be? Okay. So we have two different models that we utilize. Family consultation team is literally a team approach. It's similar to the department's family group conferencing. And we also have cooperative permanency planning. And so that's when the goal is adoption or guardianship. So with the family consultation team, I never know when this is all going to pop on my screen. The PowerPoint comes in at different times. Family consultation team is used when the goal is reunification. I would love to do every case as a family consultation team. I wish that we could be in the courthouse after every 72-hour hearing to say, let's everyone get on the same page. So if communication starts in the beginning, maybe we can make a lot of progress that oftentimes gets lost. We focus on those four areas: safety, support, continuity of relationships, and permanence. Children need to be safe. They need to be emotionally and physically safe. So what areas need to be addressed to do that? Is it domestic violence? Are there substance concerns? Is there lack of stable housing? What are the issues of safety that need to be addressed for this child to go home? What supports are in place? So it's wonderful that there are therapists and parent aides and different professionals, but we also look to try and dig to say, what natural resources are there? Is grandma around? Is she a support emotionally for childcare in different ways? What about a neighbor? What natural supports are there? And oftentimes with these families, there's limited natural supports, but we dig and really see who's there to be helpful to support the children and the families to try and work towards stability for children to go home. If a child's been in care for a good period of time, the relationships that they may have developed are really important to recognize. Just ripping a child away from a foster parent who's been caring for them for 3 years, is that best for children? You know, can that foster parent be an active part of this process as we're trying to address what they need? So the family consultation team brings a team together, and CASA might be a part of that team. My first introduction to permanency mediation was as a CASA supervisor. I went to a family consultation team meeting. You will all have those cases that will stay with you and make such a lifelong impression on you. It was a little baby. She was 2 months old. She had significant fractures. And so she was removed from mom's care. As time went on, she was with a family resource. She was doing well, and mother was doing everything that was being asked. It looked really promising that she would be able to go home to mom. But we weren't really sure how that was going to happen. So the family consultation team came together. It was a big support. There were family members, there were providers, professionals, and it was really helpful that CASA was included because CASA had a lot of information. We had 2 different volunteers work on that case that did incredible work, that knew this family inside and out and could speak to so much that was going on. We talked about concurrent planning. And so the goal was for that baby to go home. And if the baby couldn't go home, what else would happen? We normalized the fact that every parent needs a plan B. And we said to mom, because mom was the parent that was primarily involved, dad was not, that if this child cannot be raised by you, what would you like to see happen? And her desire was for her child to stay with the aunt and uncle if they could not come home to her. So the family really worked hard, and they had a really good team in place, and they had some really good plans. Unfortunately, the best laid plans don't always work out. The department decided to go in a very different direction, and they wanted to go to termination of parental rights. It was a heartbreaking case. Case went all the way to trial. Rights were terminated. The case went to appeal. CASA was noted in the appellate brief. It was tipped on appeal, went back, and the child ended up going back home. CASA supported that all along. Child was moved at 2 months of age, went home when she was almost 4. And so just know that your work is instrumental. That child has gone on to do well. I still see that child's that mom's attorney from time to time, and he gets a Christmas card every year. So mediation really helped to bring a team together, to really talk about how to address things to make sure that children have what they need if they're able to go home. With cooperative permanency planning, if the goal is adoption or guardianship and it doesn't look like a child returning home is going to be a safe option, and granted, different people can have different opinions on that. Most parents do not agree right out of the gate, and most parents' attorneys do not agree right out of the gate. We're relating that this is a conversation, okay? We are not asking anyone to commit to anything, but let's have some conversations. We always start out letting people talk about what their hopes and dreams are, okay? And then we really work to do some reality testing. We meet with the department to understand, how did this family become involved? What were the department concerns? What continue to be the concerns that prohibit this child from going home? Why does the department have a goal of guardianship or adoption? And I think you know that sometimes the department's goal can change back to reunification. How confusing is that? So we really vet the department's information. We really look hard to say, is there any consideration of this goal changing? Our trial date's already set. What direction is this case going in? Because when we meet with families, you know, we want to get their sense as to what they think is going on. And so we let parents talk about their hopes and dreams if their child was to come home to them, what that would look like. And then we move into a phase to say, if that was not able to happen, what would be important for you to have your child know about you? What way do you think you can continue to be a part of your child's life? If the child's being adopted by a kinship resource, grandma, maternal aunt, you know, mom's existence is not going to be a mystery. Mom's there. Oftentimes family relationships can mend. Don't we always hope that the challenges that these families face get resolved at some point in time? You know, many people who struggle with addiction, they do go on to experience recovery, to work a program, to do really well and rebuild their lives, but they might not do it within a time frame that their child needs to achieve permanence. But one of the things that these conversations really address is that down the road, what your child needs now when they're 4 or what they need when they're 14 could be very different. Children don't forget that mom and dad exist. Children have familial trees on both sides, and when they're adopted, they have new familial trees, but it doesn't take away those original connections. You know, a biological mother is the only one who has the birth story for that child. I just remember my daughter always wanting to hear that story over and over again. And leaving the door open with some of these agreements for children to get information that they need really makes a difference. It is a process that really respects the fact that there's a lot of high emotions that go on in these cases. We take things step by step, and we recognize that an open adoption, open guardianship, open can mean different things for different people. Everyone gets stuck on how many visits will there be? How many visits a year? The department's fallback is 2 visits a year, cards and letters. And that could be what an agreement turns out to be. But with a mediated agreement, there's more depth to what that means, okay? When we're talking with people, what information is important to share? We bring people together because there's a demonization that goes on in these cases. It's not necessarily intended, but people who don't have, that are caring for children, they fall in love with these children. They want what's best, and they have a really, really hard time understanding how can mom or dad have done these things that really hurt this child that I love now so much. They're bad. They've made all these mistakes. They did not put the children first. And the fact that they made a lot of mistakes is true. The fact that they may not have put the children first, I'm sure is true. But I'm going to bet dollars to donuts that they love their children, okay? And that if they could go back and do things over again in a different way and knew how, that they would. And I don't think there's anyone that beats a parent up more than themselves, all right? The ongoing contact, however that turns out to be, it's really not for the benefit of the parent. It's for the benefit of that adopted child as to who are they and who are they in this world. You know, our formation of identity goes through different stages at different ages. And it's really important for children to feel as secure as possible. We want adoptive parents to know that adoption empowers them to be not just the legal parent, but the parent. They are the living parent taking care of these children. They have the right to make the decisions for their children, and they are fully part of any ongoing contact that they would have. But if they are supervising a visit with a biological parent, it's different than going to a DCF office to supervise. Some of the things that are talked about when you're talking about in-person contact with open adoption agreements is the department has a fallback of using supervised visitation centers, okay? And I just wonder how my daughter would feel if she's 6 and I'm taking her to see her biological mother that she hasn't seen for a long time, because there's not a lot of visits in the agreement. If I dropped her off at that visitation center, so somebody she doesn't know is going to sit and watch her visit and talk with someone that she doesn't know all that well. Or would she feel better if I was there and I greeted this person kindly and warmly, showing that the adults all care about her, and sat back a little bit and let them talk? Would it be better if we did it at the zoo, where there's things to talk about and easier interactions to have, at a park, at a really safe, child-friendly community location? Those kind of things make all the difference in the world. It lets an adoptive parent see that their child still is safe. They are there as the touchstone for that child, but it allows the child to have a connection in whatever way that's going to look like with their biological family. I'm in the process of working with the family, and the child is 15. He is being adopted and he wants to be adopted. And so all these plans have been talked about with him. So one of the big things that Plummer stresses is the voice of the child needs to come into this process. When I first did permanency mediation in the past, we didn't meet with the children because the children aren't the decision makers. They don't get to say what all the terms are in the agreement. They don't get to really call all the shots, but it's all about them. So we meet with children in every case. If they're over the age of 12, they have to sign the agreement to mediate. And so again, all that signing is the willingness to have a conversation. But when we meet with children, just as you do as CASAs, you want to be able to hear their thoughts, their feelings, what's important to them. If we have a family consultation team, they can be included in those meetings. I've had children in those meetings. It depends on their age and stage and the way that they can participate. Where would they sit? How long would they be in the meeting? What would ways to make sure that that child feels safe, secure, and comfortable? What adults know them best that can support them through this process? When we meet with children, we use different tools, and you may do this as well. I don't know if you're familiar with the 3 houses tool. You know, children talk about their house of dreams, their house of worries. We really want to help children express what's important to them, so that as the adults are going on and making decisions, we're taking those important things into consideration in the plans. Forgive me, I talk so much that it makes me cough. So the 15-year-old that I'm working with, I did a tool with him that's called the bullseye. And the bullseye says, okay, so you are the center of the universe. Who knows a lot about you? And we go through the circles to say, who knows the most about you? So Julian's in the middle. Who knows Julian the best? And those people go in the first circle. So that's usually, you know, maybe the adoptive parents, maybe a foster parent, maybe mom, maybe dad, maybe a sibling. So the child that I just worked with, his siblings were in that first circle, and his prior foster parents knew him the best. The next circle out came his pre-adoptive parents, some different social workers, some different people that were involved in his life. And as we started to go out farther, his mom got into that circle, his dad got into those. And then we said, who needs to know more? Who needs to know more about you as you go along, as we're making these plans? He wanted his pre-adoptive parents to be brought into that inner circle. And he wanted mom to come in a little bit closer. As we're making this plan, part of the agreement is potentially for the child to have updates about him sent. He's going to be part of creating those updates, talking about what's important to him, what things he enjoys, what's his favorite video game, because that's a big thing to him, how school's going, what activities he's involved in. So he's at an age where he can express what's important to him, and his wishes are really represented in the agreement that's being put together. So the adoptive parents will have a great deal of discretion in determining what's in his best interests, but he too will have a voice in this process. Ongoing contact can be done safely and supportively, and really is important. And every child is different, and every family is different, so every agreement turns out to be a little bit different. We've been doing this for a while, but again, we're feeling like the new kids on the block in regards to services within the system. And part of our process, we do advisory groups. And so I recently met with the judiciary. The first justice was there. We met with representatives from CPCS, from the private bar, DCF legal, DCF clinical, big team to say, okay, so mediation's been within the Worcester Juvenile Courts for a year. How are things going? We want feedback. And, you know, we got a lot of really good questions. And what I came away with is that not everyone has experienced mediation fully, because they're seeing most of our cases being open adoption and guardianship agreements, because we're getting cases that are older. And it's really hard to go back, and you can't turn back the clock. We would love to get more cases earlier on where the goal is still reunification, where the communication can be rebuilt and children can go home safely. because it's true that sometimes some parents need their hands held more than others, okay? Some social workers are hand holders, some are not. We want to make sure that to the extent that communication can be supported and encouraged so that cases can go in directions that will be best for the way that the children need. If mediation can help in those regards, we want to. If we could do all family consultation teams, and then if the goal changed, if the identified need for the child changed, we talk about that concurrent plan. But again, mediation helps to bring the child's voice into the process, to really hear what the people who will be involved lifelong want for these children. I had a case that mom did not want to engage. Dad said, I'm going to trial. He said, I am not going to agree to terminate my rights, but I want my parents to raise my child, okay? And DCF said, no, the goal is adoption. This child has been with this pre-adoptive home for 3 years. And so the mediation was really interesting because I worked with dad and his parents, and I worked with the pre-adoptive home. And we got to such a point that we actually came all together. The grandmother and this pre-adoptive mother had made a really nice connection. The grandmother knew that there were other children in the home. So every time that this child came for a visit, when grandmother would send little care packages home with this child, she sent the same thing home to the other children in the home. That pre-adoptive mom really had a great relationship with her. So they would send pictures back and forth by email. And when they got together in the same room, the adoptive parents made it really clear, the pre-adoptive parents, that we're not here to steal your child. We love her. We want to present her with a home lifelong. We do. We understand that you love her too. And that the court will be the one making that decision. Okay. What they bonded over was their frustration with the Department of Children and Families. You know, I don't want to bash the department. They're really good people working in a really hard system. It does have its failings. It does. Not everyone does the job that they're signed up to do, but overall they do really try hard. But it is hard for families because, you know, there's a lot of limitations put on them. So when I had these parties together, they bonded over the frustration of the department. And in the end, regardless of what the outcome was going to be for the court, the importance that they each had in this child's life was known and respected. We don't get to see what happens down the road. I always wonder how that case turned out. But I really believe that if that child stayed where she was, that biological family would still have a connection. So I'm going to stop my share here. So now I can see the room, which helps. So mediation comes in at whatever point in a case that we're asked to. It could be early on, it could be right before trial. We always let the court know that we need a few months. You know, if it's 2 weeks before trial, you can't build those relationships. It takes time, it takes the chance to have some trust. And we're really working with the department to try and have some trust in us as well. If any of you have seen open adoption agreements, the department really likes visitation centers, and they really like sunset clauses, which says that if mom or dad misses 2 visits in a row, then all visits are off. That never happens again. We are working with people who are at the lowest points in their lives. And I remember when I started working in the system, it was so hard for me to even comprehend that if you only get to visit with a child once a week or once a month, how would you not make it there? How do you not move heaven and earth to get there? But now I stop and realize that that is such an important thing, to see their child, and all their faults and failings are weighing on them. Okay. The fact that they've disappointed their child, the fact that they've done things that have hurt their child, that people are looking at them, that people are judging them. And it's so hard to move past them to really just see their child. So it's not that they don't love and care about their children. but those visits are so much more for them than just sitting in the room with their children. Oftentimes they need time to heal, to be able to go on. So leaving that door open with an agreement is helpful, because you don't know what that child is going to want, what that child is going to need going forward. And that's what we really stress, that we do care about mom and dad. We do care about the adoptive parents, but it's the children. What do the children need now and in the future? And every child is different. One of my colleagues has, her son is adopted, and they're very open in discussions. They don't know a lot about the biological family because of the way that this child's life has turned out. And he's been doing really well. They've been open in discussions all along. And he's in high school, and all of a sudden he was just off and having some really difficult days, and it wasn't quite clear what was going on. Lo and behold, they're learning about genetics in science, and all those little buttons are getting pushed, and all those questions that he doesn't have answers to are getting asked. Knowing about it helped his parents to be able to have those conversations, and they wish they were able to help him find some more of those answers, but they don't have the ability to. One of our cases recently is really, really tragic, that it was in the middle of working on an open adoption agreement, and mom overdosed and passed away. It was tragic. Mediation had brought those people together so that the adoptive parents could say, I've met your mom, and this is what she shared. Those are something to hold on to. Oftentimes people are resistant because they're afraid, to come together, because what's this going to be like? It's awkward. It's different. It's difficult. We prep. What kind of questions are you going to ask? What information are you comfortable sharing? It's all about the children. And more recently, these two dads were adopting a little girl, and they came together with the mom, and they really didn't want to. Okay, they didn't really see the point of it. They were really having a hard time with it. And part of their agreement had in-person contact. We said, well, when you get to the park, wouldn't it be nice to know who the person is that you're looking for? If you've never seen her before, that could be had. Let's try and come together now. When they did, one of the first things that they said, one of the dads was really taken aback. He said, oh my God, she has your eyes. It was melting. That's when the magic happens. And I'm going to tell you that some of these cases, the magic really does happen. Adults are able to put their fears, their hesitations, their insecurities aside, and really work in the best interest of these children. The adults who will be there lifelong get to be empowered to make the decisions that are so very, very important. We will continue to work with the department and try and educate them and help them to realize some of the things that we see and really believe. And we do it one case at a time. So I tend to go on. As you can tell, I'm a big believer in this work. The very first case that started back up when we started doing this work, I took it out of the Springfield area, and it was a reunification case. It was a family consultation team. And it was a really tough case because the domestic violence was really significant. Mom herself was a victim in more than one relationship. And what she had such a hard time understanding was that I'm a victim. Why am I being penalized? Why are you keeping my children from me? She was not able to see at that point in time what her children had experienced from the relationships. We worked really hard in that case. We helped to bridge the communication. I had a social worker who really worked hard and was willing to really go the extra mile. Mom was really resistant to services, but then really got in. And family consultation team cases go 4 to 6 months. They take longer because we have a few meetings, because you build over time. Everyone has tasks to do. The department is held to task, just like mom and dad are. They're put on an equal playing field to say everyone has jobs to do. In that case, mom's engagement over time, her language, her recognition, her insight grew. The children did go home. The reunification was successful. She was a wonderful mom, had great parenting skills, and she learned more about herself and her relationships and how not to keep just herself safe, but her children safe as they went forward. It was wonderful to reach that success, although during the process, it was really hard. I gave the Department a lot of credit on that case because they took a step back and said, let's see if the process will work. I had a DCF supervisor say to me recently, after a meeting, she said, Laurie, I had to tell you, I don't love that you kind of called the department out. But I do think that it helped the parents to see that the department has to do their job too. The department was supposed to be supervising visits regularly. Social worker went on vacation. And so they said they were going to make it up. And my question was, did we know the social worker was going on vacation? And if that's going to happen, how do we make sure that this child has the visit that they've been promised in the future? Not trying to just make up the time, but how do we make that consistency happen? How does the department look forward to have the same expectation that mom and dad are? Mom and dad are expected to show up. The department's expected to be there to make sure the visit happens. So again, when you have willing partners, a lot of great conversations can happen. They can be challenging. Not everyone's always happy, but really, we really work to try and say, let's put these children first and foremost. So I can go on and on. I tend to do that. Again, I'm a big believer. Does anyone have any question? Who can ask for mediation to be involved? All these, great. So the cases come from two different sources. We get referred from the court, so any attorney can ask for mediation. The judge can order mediation. You can encourage child's attorney to ask for mediation. You get to see, because you guys are there on the front lines and you see where communication breaks down, okay? There are times that CASA will be in a different position than the department's goal. You know, there are cases that go in the realm of guardianship adoption that reunification really could and should be considered. So we take referrals from the court itself, as well as the Department of Children and Families makes some referrals. We treat cases the same, regardless of what that referral source. Doesn't matter who's paying for the service. The department doesn't get a break if they happen to be the referral source. We do the same process. And the cases come to us as soon as they are referred to us. And like I said, I'd love to see cases come in sooner. One of the things that I had said to Jordan earlier is that for CASA, if you were to be engaged in a family consultation team, one of the big conversations that we would have to have ahead of time would be the fact that you are the eyes and ears of the judge and you share your information with the court. Mediation is confidential, okay? Knowing that all good information gets shared because people want it to be shared. But challenges, no one gets penalized if they're not successful in mediation. So no information would be shared with the court if you were to be part of a family consultation team meeting. But you know that any vital information would always come forward because the children's care and well-being is always first and foremost. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Has anyone experienced this?
Can I ask really quickly how CASA or the volunteer supervisor, whoever, could become involved in these meetings or cases or plans that you guys are creating?
So the family consultation teams is where the whole team gets put together. If it's a case that's guardianship or adoption, you simply having discussions with the resources as you're going and visiting with the children and talking to their caretakers, asking their thoughts, you know, helping to be a sounding board for them as they consider what's going to be best for their children going forward. A big thing for all of you to consider as well, because of your incredible knowledge of the child welfare system, Permanency Mediation is always looking for new permanency mediators, not trying to steal your CASA volunteers. Please know that it's something that could be done in addition. We do have mediators. Our mediators come from all walks of life, just like CASA volunteers do. Okay, we have people who are well versed in the child welfare system. We have people who are not. It is something that if anyone is to engage, they do a basic mediation training first. And all different places in the state do basic mediation trainings, and they generally charge for the trainings. I will say that those trainings are well worth it, because my basic mediation skills have helped me even in family relationships, in trying to talk with people when you have different views. It's amazing how you can cut through a lot of confusion when you're really actively listening to people, to hear what people might be saying the same thing, but saying it in a very different way. When people have a basic mediation under the belt, we offer our permanency mediation training once to twice a year. Most recent trainings are being done at our office in Worcester, which is in downtown Worcester, not all that far from CASA. It's about a 40-hour training. It's a commitment, but it is free. And we do a whole rundown as to education of the child welfare system, how to use permanency mediation in a family consultation team model, as well as a cooperative permanency planning model, how to have those difficult conversations. Our mediators are really well supported. They have ongoing guidance and training. We have continuing ed, and it is a paid position as well. They become subcontractors. And the reason I love talking to you is because, one, you know these children, you do this work. And if anyone is interested in moving into this realm, I'm always available for more conversations, just because you have a great knowledge as to what these families experience and what these children need. So it can be a really good additional fit to some of your portfolios. Okay. Any other thoughts, questions?
All right. Well, thank you
Lots
so
to
much,
absorb.
Lori.
Thank you.
It was amazing.
Thank you for
Was
having
really
me. I
looking
really
forward.
appreciate it.
It
I
really
do
was
hope
great.
that,
Thank you.
you know, that you can be involved more going forward. Anyone has any other questions, don't hesitate. You can contact Jordan and she can give you my contact information. I'd be happy just to have conversations. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank you all.
Lori.
And for those
So,
names I see, so good to see you all again.
thanks,
and
Lori.
everyone take care. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye
Have
now.
a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.